Welcome to Serving with Success, Administrative Review Procedures. The objectives of this module are to learn the specific areas covered in an administrative review, how to use the off-site assessment tool for an administrative review, and what are the on-site expectations and procedures for an administrative review, the process of corrective action and the time frame for completion, and closing the administrative review. The topics covered in this module are the review process overview, specific areas of the review, the off-site assessment tool, the on-site visit, follow-up procedures after the on-site visit, and closing of the review. The Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 calls for an effective and efficient review process which incorporates school breakfast, the new meal pattern and dietary specifications, 6-cent performance-based reimbursement, and other federal programs. It puts into effect the 3-year review cycle which was implemented July 1, 2013. It provides for off-site monitoring approaches as well as effective training and ongoing technical assistance. The administrative review is a state agency assessment of the LEA's administration of the NSLP, SBP, and other school nutrition programs. The objectives of the administrative review are to determine whether the LEA meets program requirements, provide technical assistance, secure any needed corrective action, assess fiscal action, and, when applicable, recover improperly paid funds.
So we also have a webinar that we recorded, and it's called What to Expect During Your Administrative Review. It's very specific, very detailed. We go through each question, and that is going to be located on the DESI Food Nutrition Services website.
Welcome. Today we will be discussing what to expect during your administrative review.
The review period will be the most recent month a claim was submitted and must include 10 or more operating days. The reviewer will determine which month the review period will be. The review will evaluate the month that the reviewer is on site as well as the review period. A week from the review period will be selected for menu review, which will be discussed later in this presentation. The month of the on-site review includes the day of the review. This is usually the month following the review period. Occasionally, there may be a month in between the review period and the day of the on-site review due to the date a claim is submitted. For example, the review could be conducted November 1, but since the claim for the month prior, October, is not likely to be submitted before the reviewer is on site, then the review period could be September. The authorized representative and the food service director will be notified of the date of review. This may be the same individual in some LEAs. The off-site assessment tool will be discussed and review sites will be determined. The reviewer may request pre-visit information regarding certification and the benefit issuance document, also known as the master roster list. Additionally, the reviewer will request menu documentation for the review period, the wellness policy, and civil rights documentation. The reviewer may request additional information to prepare for the on-site visit. The Regional Nutrition Program Specialist, also known as the reviewer, will contact the LEA 4 to 6 weeks in advance to schedule the review. The off-site assessment tool includes questions concerning monitoring areas and must be completed by the LEA prior to the review. It is available through DESI web applications to all LEAs scheduled for review during the current school year. The LEA is responsible for completing the following question sets in the off-site assessment tool prior to the on-site review. These example questions offer further instruction in completing the off-site assessment tool. Questions 111 through 121 refer to how eligibility determinations are followed throughout the process. Provide as much information as necessary for the reviewer to understand the process. Question set 200. Verification. Question 201 requires the name and title of the verifying official, the person who is responsible for verification. This could be the same individual who made the original determination of benefits. Question 202 requires the name and title of the confirming official, the person who confirms the original determination of benefits. However, the confirming official cannot be the same person who made this original determination. The confirming official must sign each application selected for verification, indicating their review of the original determination. Question set 300. Meal counting and claiming. Question 302 asks if the LEA has a backup system to their primary meal counting and claiming system. For instance, how do cashiers count meals at the point of service if their primary system fails? Describe the plan the LEA has in place if this occurs. Question 305 refers to the LEA's meal counting and claiming procedures for certain situations. Describe the specific processes the LEA uses for each situation. Be sure to indicate NA in the appropriate box for any situations that do not apply. Question 308. Indicate if alternate points of service have been approved by the state agency. Describe any alternative points of service in the comments section, including the number and types of alternate points of service operating during each meal service. For example, meals served in the classroom or on a bus. Any alternate points of service should be indicated on the Methods of Collections form. Question set 800. Civil rights. Question 803 refers to discrimination. Describe the LEA's procedure for receiving and processing complaints alleging discrimination within FNS school meal programs. Question 806. When was the LEA's most recent civil rights training? This training must be conducted annually and is recommended to occur at the beginning of the school year. Provide the date of training, the names of those who attended, and what topics were covered. If the documentation is in electronic form, select the paperclip and upload the associated documents. Indicate that documents are attached in the space provided under questions A and B. Question set 900. LEA on-site monitoring. Describe the process the LEA uses to ensure all schools are meeting program requirements. Question set 1000. Local School Wellness Policy. Question 1000. If your wellness policy is in electronic form, select the paperclip and upload the document here. Question 1005. Obtain a copy of the most recent assessment on the implementation of the local school wellness policy. Select the paperclip and upload the document. Question set 1100. Smart Snacks. Questions 1100 through 1102 asks what the LEA food sale policies, process for determining compliance with non-packaged or recipe food items, and how the LEA accounts for accompaniments when determining whether food items meet the Smart Snack standards. Question set 1200. Professional Standards. Questions 1200 through 1211 asks questions pertaining to LEA school nutrition program directors, managers, and staff and their training requirements. How the LEA tracks the amount of training each person has received. Question set 1600. School Breakfast and Summer Food Service Program, Seamless Summer Option Outreach. Question 1600 concerns the LEA's outreach efforts in regard to the school breakfast program. Question 1601 concerns the LEA's outreach efforts in regard to the Summer Food Service Program or the Seamless Summer Option. The off-site meal compliance risk assessment tool should be completed for each site selected for on-site review. Using the Meal Compliance Risk Assessment tool, each site receives a risk score, which signifies the factors that increase the risk of error with regard to the integrity of the program. The site with the highest risk score is selected for a targeted menu review. After the completion of the Meal Compliance Risk Assessment tool, the LEA must complete the Dietary Specifications tool for the site with the highest risk score. In the event of uncertainty, the reviewer will determine the site and inform the LEA. The Dietary Specifications tool is a series of questions regarding the environment of each kitchen, preparation methods, and types of products used. These questions will be validated on-site. The tool is found directly under the Meal Compliance Risk Assessment tool for the Building Off-Site Assessment questions. This concludes the Off-Site Assessment tool portion of the review. The number of students approved for free and reduced price meals should be listed on the benefit issuance document and should be submitted to the reviewer prior to the day of the review. DESE reviewers no longer request applications from a single building or school. The process now examines the LEA as a whole. The reviewer will randomly select a certain number of students who receive free and reduced price meals prior to the on-site visit for the purpose of reviewing the documentation for these students. The reviewer will inform the LEA of the applications and direct certification lists that are to be collected and schedule the review date. The reviewer will ask for menu and supporting documentation for a selected week of the review period. This includes certification sheets, previously known as 6-cent certification worksheets, production records, recipes, CN labels, and nutrition fact labels will also be required. Your reviewer will discuss the process with you.
USDA came up with a 6-cent meal compliance assessment tool, and it's an Excel file, and schools had to put a 1 week worth of menu into this menu compliance tool, submit supporting documentation, and once they're approved, they are certified for the performance-based reimbursement. So it's an additional 6 cents for every reimbursable meal.
The LEA should ensure that production records are complete and include the following information: the age grade group served, the portion sizes served, documentation that daily and weekly meal component requirements are met, documentation of what was served and whether there were leftovers, whether any a la carte and adult meals were served, and support claims for reimbursement. Prior to the review, the DESE reviewer will request documentation supporting meal compliance in the component and quantity area for each site selected for review. This includes, but is not limited to, menus, production records, standardized recipes, CN labels, and nutrition facts labels. Menus will be reviewed from each site that is included in the review. Duplicate menus do not require duplicate documentation. However, the LEA and the DESE Nutrition Program Specialist should ensure that menus are indeed identical and that no additional documentation is required. Additional supporting documentation may be requested by the reviewer prior to the on-site visit based on the results of the Meal Compliance Assessment tool, which determines the site selected for a targeted menu review. The on-site review procedures begin with an entrance conference where the authorized representative for the LEA is briefed on the purpose of the review and provides the on-site documentation to the reviewer. During the on-site review, the reviewer will validate the off-site questions and confirm the accuracy of the information provided. The reviewer will observe the meal preparation and service. During the exit conference, the reviewer presents the authorized representative with the results and any findings of the review and any possible fiscal action to be taken.
It's just a basic overall review of what we did off-site and what was done on-site, and then how we're going to follow up to the closing of the review.
The review of meal access and reimbursement typically occurs on the first day of the review and includes certification and benefit issuance, verification, meal counting and claiming. During the on-site assessment, the reviewer will validate the LEA's procedures from the off-site assessment tool. These include certification and benefit issuance, validation of LEA's procedures from the off-site assessment tool, validation of student certifications and the benefit issuance document, a review of denied applications, verification, the selection of a sample of verified applications to determine compliance with verification requirements, meal counting and claiming, validation of the information provided in the off-site assessment tool, validation of the counting and claiming process. Any errors in meal counting and claiming will be recorded. Fiscal action is required when errors are found in meal access and reimbursement. For example, a student approved for reduced price benefits is approved incorrectly or miscategorized on the benefit issuance document as free. Fiscal action is also required if the LEA fails to update a student's change of status as a result of verification. Fiscal action is required in the event of inaccurate meal counting or claiming. Counting errors include inaccurate point of service counts such as attendance counts, meal counts which do not equal the number of meals served to eligible students, meal counts which exceed the number of eligible students by category, and the counting of second meals. During the review of meal pattern and nutritional quality, the reviewer will examine meal components and quantities, the requirements of the offer versus serve option, and dietary specifications and nutrient analysis. Meal pattern violations could result in the shutoff of the additional 6 cents reimbursement until the LEA demonstrates compliance to the state agency, beginning with the month following the administrative review and at state discretion for the month of review. The reviewer will review menu documentation for 1 week selected from the review period, in order to ensure all meal components are offered in quantities that meet the meal pattern. The selected week must be 3 to 7 consecutive school days. The reviewer will assess meal pattern compliance and will also review breakfast and lunch documentation for compliance. The review will include menus and production records, recipes, child nutrition labels, and nutrition fact labels. A certification worksheet will be completed. If the certification worksheet indicates meals are missing components or are insufficient in quantities, the review will be expanded to another week within the review period and could include the entire review period. A nutritional analysis may also be required. Prior to the meal service, the reviewer will observe meal preparation and ensure all reimbursable meal lines offer all the required components. During the meal service, the reviewer will observe a percentage of meal service for each line and will determine if the meal contains the required components and quantities for the age grade group served. and will also ensure that students have access to all required components and know how to select a reimbursable meal. This is required to determine if all meals selected by students contain the meal components and food quantities required for the age grade group being served. If a school chooses to present the offer versus serve option, the reviewer will monitor whether the school is offering sufficient food on all reimbursable meal service lines, signage is posted explaining what constitutes a reimbursable meal, students exiting the meal service line have selected a minimum of 3 food components or items, each reimbursable meal contains at least 1/2 cup of fruits or vegetables, food service staff accurately judge quantities on self-serve stations and theme bars. Food service staff at the point of service are trained and able to recognize a reimbursable meal. Students and staff have an understanding of offer versus serve. The reviewer will confirm that the Dietary Specifications tool is consistent with the LEA's daily practices. If a discrepancy is found, then a nutrient analysis will be conducted to determine if the meals meet the dietary specification for calories, saturated fat, sodium, and trans fat. The reviewer will assess a 1-week weighted nutrient analysis if required for each established age grade group for lunch and breakfast at the reviewed site. If it is found that a meal component is completely missing, fiscal action must be taken by the state agency. LEAs are required to document that meals offered to students meet meal pattern requirements. This is accomplished using production records. It is very important that LEAs maintain their production records. Production records can be found on the DESE Food and Nutrition Services website. The LEA's resource management will be reviewed, including maintenance of the Nonprofit School Fund Service Account, paid lunch equity, revenue from non-program foods, and indirect costs. The off-site resource management questions will be validated. If this tool indicates the LEA is high risk in any of the 4 areas, a comprehensive review will be conducted in that area. The review will include these areas of general program compliance: civil rights, LEA on-site monitoring, local wellness policy, smart snacks in school, professional standards, potable water, food safety, reporting and record keeping, SBP and SFSP outreach. The following federal programs will also be reviewed if any sites within the LEA are program participants. The Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, also known as the FFVP, the After School Snack Program, the Seamless Summer Option, and the Special Milk Program. If, within the LEA, there are 1 to 5 sites operating the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, among the schools selected for a National School Lunch Program administrative review, then one of the sites operating the FFVP must be reviewed. For example, if 20 schools within the LEA are selected for a National School Lunch Program administrative review, and 5 of them also operate the FFVP, then one of those 5 will be chosen for FFVP review. If the school selected for administrative review does not operate the FFVP, the reviewer will observe another site within the LEA that does operate the FFVP. Claim validation. 1 month's claim is validated for each FFVP site selected for review. Any month can be selected for claim validation. If a claim has not been submitted for the current school year, Then a claim from the previous school year will be selected for validation. The status of administrative costs will be checked. Observation of the fresh fruit and vegetable program meal service must occur at each FFVP site selected. Fiscal action will be used to recover any payments in whole or in part that is inconsistent with requirements of the fresh fruit and vegetable program. The state agency review of the after-school snack program is intended to ensure participating schools serve students nutritionally balanced snacks, provide appropriate activities, and count and claim snacks accurately. The reviewer will determine if the LEA retains final administrative and management responsibility for meeting all after-school snack requirements. The reviewer will assess compliance in the areas of eligibility, accountability, meal counting and claiming, meal pattern, production records, monitoring, and general areas. The LEA should conduct a self-review of each after-school snack operation twice per year, as well as other general areas of the program. The post-review procedures include the Administrative Review Exit Conference, where the state agency representative will discuss any program violations identified, the extent of violations, and a preliminary assessment of the actions needed to correct the violations, the deadlines for completion of corrective action, and closing the administrative review. After the review exit conference, the state agency must provide written notification of the review findings to the LEA superintendent, an authorized representative or the equivalent in a non-public LEA, and the food service director. In order to close out the administrative review for the LEA, the state agency must obtain documented corrective action from the LEA for any degree of findings in either the critical or general areas of the review. Documented corrective action should also include any program violations identified outside the scope of the administrative review. The LEA must submit documented corrective action to the state agency no later than 30 days after the established deadline for completion of each required corrective action. If the LEA is unable to complete the required corrective action within the specified deadlines, under extraordinary circumstances, the state agency may extend the deadlines upon written request from the LEA. Upon receipt of the LEA's documented corrective action, the state agency will determine if the documentation is complete and resolves the identified findings. Once the state agency approves the corrective action, it will send a closure letter to the LEA closing the review within 30 calendar days of receipt of the documented corrective actions.
It's for you to know if you're doing something right or something wrong, or if you need a little assistance, and it can be a really good learning tool.
Now that you have finished viewing administrative review procedures, complete the following brief quiz.